One of the highlights of the whole weekend here at the Nürburgring 24 Hours is the Falcon Drift Show, always down towards the Goodyear, now called Kera, where the Falcon cars will be leading this demonstration run, which will last for about an hour and a half, heading towards the hairpin. And the drivers in these instantly recognisable Falcon colours, the two-tone blue, of which we've got racing versions or racing cars in the same liveries. These two are going to start off a twin battle, as you might see in a drift competition, part of the Nürburgring Drift Cup, which will be here later on in the year. Two more rounds to come of the 2025 Nürburgring Drift Cup over weekends in September and October. And to enjoy the opening stages of this drift simulation show, Johnny Palmer, Joe Bradley and Ben Constant-Duras, three of the commentators for the main 24-hour race this weekend. I've not seen a lot of drifting in my time, Joe, but I'm really quite excited to see how this is going to pan out. It's a real tradition at this event.
Haven't you, Johnny? We've seen loads, usually, as a spectator.
Well, that's true.
Not having a real clue as to what's going on, but it's quite a showpiece, isn't it? And the fans love it. And it's so technical. I've really learned a lot. Those cars are not necessarily what they seem. Heavily modified engines, heavily modified suspension, certainly heavily modified rear axles to take all the, what is quite literally abuse, Ben. And talking about abuse, you've abused some cars in your day, haven't you, mate?
Yeah, but never successfully drifted. It's either that or into a ditch.
Yeah, unsuccessfully drifted.
Unsuccessfully drifted. It's actually a spectacle that I have been able to enjoy with the motorsport games, the FIA motorsport games, because the FIA actually do recognise this as a sport. That's not to say they shouldn't. It's to say that it is now has FIA regulations that govern it, and there is an FIA championship alongside what's more recognised as the World Championship in Formula Drift, which is their sort of global championship. Initially started in Japan, as drifting did as well, but now very much the home of drifting.
And quite right that the FIA does recognise it as a very skillful form of motorsport, but not just from a driving sense, but also an engineering sense. And as I've said, we've got things like BMWs with Chevrolet V8, 7.4 litre Chevy V8s putting out 700-800 brake horsepower. We've got heavily modified turbocharged cars putting out 1,000 brake horsepower, and the requisite different design and modifications on gearboxes and drivetrains to handle that 1,000 brake horsepower, and then to put that thing sideways and all done on the throttle. There can be a little bit of handbrake, and we're going to see the differences, I think, in this display. And Johnny, this is a display, this is not a competition, but we do know the rules and regs that we're going to be looking out for.
Well, yeah, ordinarily you would have what's called a twin battle, which is actually two runs that constitutes a single twin battle. One car does the job of the leader, the second car the chaser, and the chaser has to react inches, millimetres away from the side of the leading car to the flicks and the turns. And it's fine when you're going in one direction through a drift, but then you've got to judge precisely when the lead car is going to switch around, flick the back end in the other direction, trying to go through what are called clipping points and the zones that are drawn on the racetrack ordinarily. We don't have those this weekend because this is a live racetrack that will be used, has been being used all day and yesterday, and of course through the 24 hours of the Nürburgring as well. But to simulate these clipping points and the zones, some of these cars will be going as close to the edge of the racetrack as is humanly possible.
And there is some subjectivity from the respect of the judges and how they mark and award points. Things like aggression in the turn, aggression in the slide, and how the slide is induced and whether it's aggressive enough. And quite a spectacular sport, lots of smoke. And there, did you see how much lock there? Almost 70 degrees of lock on these steering racks to enable the cars to go pretty much beyond 45 degrees at most times.
And amazing to see the variety in vehicle, from very modern BMWs to certainly much older Nissan Skylines. That there is a BMW E30, or that's where it started its life. But as you say, Joe, under the hood, they are completely modified, allowing them to do extraordinary things with these vehicles.
Leading them off was Rohan van Riel, the guy from Luxembourg who's influential in the Falcon Drift team with his BMW M6. There was also the Nissan Skyline of Rick van Goten of the Netherlands. I somehow felt that drifting might be quite big with the Dutch guys, and they've brought plenty of them to the entry this weekend. So these are just single runs at this stage. Gets far more unbelievable to watch when we get two cars abreast in the twin battles, because, as I say, the following car needs to respect and mirror, if you like, or simulate precisely what the car in front is doing, and they're doing that mere millimetres apart. At a normal competition, there'd be 4 judges. A lot of them are actually former drifters themselves, and they'll be marking the runs, the various twin battle runs, on 4 different elements. So that's, first of all, the line that is used, so via the clipping points and the zones that we've already talked about. But almost anybody can go through the clipping points at a much reduced speed and without too much style. So the speed has got to be taken into account, together with the finesse that is involved as well. So style, another important element, and then the angle from the direction of travel, because if you can be 45 degrees or even better 90 degrees to the eventual direction of travel, that makes it more spectacular, and you can be scored with a maximum of 100 points. So I assume it's 25 on each: line, style, speed and angle, and the maximum, the kind of holy grail, is 100 points.
Now, these competitors are all from the Nürburgring Drift Cup, which is a 3-round series. We've had round 1. Round 2 will be here on the 6th and 7th of September. Round 3, to conclude the championship, will be on the 25th and 26th of October. And the section which we are on at the moment, the section of the track here at the Nürburgring, is the Goodyear curve, the sweeping hairpin at the bottom end of the Grand Prix Strecker, and then the run up towards the Schumacher S. You'll see the drivers; they'll stop sliding and spinning their wheels, and reaching speeds of up to 200 kilometers an hour by the time they get to Schumacher S. The S's, in competition circumstances, they are awarded points on the speed at the Schumacher as they clip the beam at the Schumacher S's.
Didn't Marcus earlier on, when he was speaking to us of the Nürburgring Drift Show, didn't he say that as they go into the Michael Schumacher S, somewhere between 180 and 200 kph, that's the point that they yank the handbrake to pitch it into a spin at 180 kph.
Yeah. And then they can accelerate through the drift and increase their speed, because as they are drifting, they are effectively spinning at the rear wheels, which creates heat, which creates grip. And so they actually accelerate through the turns.
In complete contrast to conventional race driving on a track, sideways to sideways, and certainly the amount of sideways action that we're seeing here is not conducive to a quick lap time, nor to tyre life, is it?
When Joe Bradley was a young whippersnapper, he would used to pump up his rear tyres to allow him to drift around car parks of the northeast of England.
How do you know that?
Because it's clearly obvious.
A very good judge of character, yes.
But Joe, you were wrong.
I was absolutely wrong. But then again, they're not on Colwyn remolds, so they are actually, the tyre pressures are very, very low, 0.8 of a bar. And because of the heat we're generating, as we can see how much heat we're generating, because we're creating a lot of smoke, they go up to about 1.8 to 2 bar by the time they've had their run. So the pressure in the tyre will increase. So that kind of made sense, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But 0.8 of a bar, I wouldn't even put that in my kid's bicycle.
Well, it's going to look flat.
Yeah.
It's going to look flat when they start.
Luke Woodman's board is...
a monster truck.
He's supposed to be in a Nissan with 650 horsepower.
Is that a monster truck, or is that a monster?
Well, it's not a monster truck as by definition, but it is a monster-backed truck. Yes. So in that respect, definitely is a monster truck. And just gone through the Dunlop Carer then, and heading back up the hill. Just also keep.
That's the last of our drift cars, isn't it? So that's I think that must be their introductory lap. That's them saying, "Hello, this is us," and now we're going to see a bit more of a competition element to it. But it looks as though maybe Luke is not participating in his drift vehicle, and instead we are seeing him in his Jeep, because we do have a heavy presence of Monster here this weekend. That is one of the 24-hour sponsors.
At the energy drink, that is. There's quite a few monsters out there, to be honest, in the woods, drinking beer mostly with long beards. Yeah, the Monster Energy drink people are well behind this kind of sport. It's an extreme sport. We've had a coming together.
Well, that's apparently allowed, although it was a pretty brutal hit, I think.
What?
Was it a 360?
360.
Okay. I couldn't see there was so much smoke around.
He got hit because he wasn't seen.
What I was going to say was a light tap here and there is effectively allowed, as long as you're not kind of smacking into an opponent, a car that you're either chasing or being the leader of. Well, it was well dealt with, and of course it's going to be with drivers of this skill. If you're missing the voice of Becky Evans, by the way, who's nearly always here every year on the Friday, she's actually in competition right now, so can't join us in the commentary box, but a member of the Falcon Drift team for this year in the Nissan Silvia S14. So if you spot car number 9, that is Queen Bee, as she's known, Bex. And great on the mic, but arguably even better behind the wheel of one of these drift cars. And also just caught sight of Andy Wisniewski in his Toyota Sora, which is right towards the rear of the little groups, just ahead of the monster truck that we've been talking about. So disaster averted. The problem is, I suppose, as you plunge away into a huge plume of smoke, you don't necessarily know whether there's a car there or not, or whether it's just the sheer amount of smoke that's been left in the ether. We complained this time last year, or tomorrow this time last year, that there was way too much fog on the Nürburgring Grand Prix Strecke. This was a similar situation that prevented us from racing in the 24-hour race in 2024, but we like this kind of reduced visibility. Burning up a nice few Falcon tyres.
Yeah, we are heavily modified cars there to accommodate the amount of sideways action we're seeing. Different steering racks, quick ratio steering racks, and the steering angle is increased massively. If you try to reach these angles in a road car, the sort of car you drive on the road, the rear end would be coming so far around, it would be bringing the front end with it. So you can add more steering angle, so you can get actually more sideways.
As you can see, the grandstands down there are absolutely rammed for this show. They have foregone their extra beer to come down into what is an amazing cathedral down there that has hosted all kinds of different events. The World Rally Cross Championship raced around there for a few years. It's also been the final stage of a local rally and also the perfect stage for the Nürburgring Drift Cup. And now this show, but the grandstand is absolutely rammed.
I mean, it's quite a spectacular sport to watch. I mean, the car, a sideways car being skillfully drifted on the throttle, spinning up those wheels, burning the tyres off, getting a little bit on the dirt there, and just kicking up the... But just look how sideways the car is, and again, that steering rack, we not just the steering is modified, we've got the rear end, the adjustable suspension, completely different to what these road car versions of these cars that we're seeing out there are, completely adjustable to give you more massive amount of tow out, more amount of tow in. That enables the rear end to react differently to the throttle. And of course you need a bit of power. You don't necessarily need 1,000 horsepower. That looked like a Plymouth Barracuda through the smoke. I'm pretty sure it isn't.
Is it Dodge Charger?
Dodge Charger, yeah.
Alexandre Claudie.
My favourite Dodge Charger.
I bet there's not much Dodge Charger left in that.
I had a hire car across in Atlanta for a historic racing event, and I could not spin the wheels when I pulled away. It was a 5.7 litre Hemi, and the most delicate way of pulling away, I could never not spin the wheels. It would be a little, but it would spin the wheels.
It's that Dodge Charger has over 1,000 horsepower. That's not the most horsepower that they've got out there, but I don't think there's much original Dodge Charger in there. But it does look pretty cool, and I think that's one of the things about drifting, is yes, you want to you want to get all the rules and regulations, and you want to get sideways, and you want to be fast, and you want to execute your drifts in a certain way. But there's a certain amount of just being really cool, very sort of freestyle element like you'd find in snowboarding. It's about the style, about the attitude you bring to the event. Archie Hamilton, who is one of the youngest competitors here this weekend, British driver. He talks about himself as a movement.
Yeah.
He's not just a driver, he's a movement. And so how cool your car looks really does matter.
We're getting to the phase of the display now. I think, well, we might start to think about twin battles. So we've seen them, maybe, possibly, running through the hairpin on their own. They're just showing elements of maybe getting a little closer to one another. The other thing I noted is that you said, Joe, at the time, one ran off the track. Now, Marcus said in competition, if you can drop a wheel off the asphalt and onto the grass, or certainly into a gravel trap, that's you effectively eliminated from a twin battle there and there.
Yeah, these guys are freestyling, aren't they, out there? It's typical freestyling. But yes, in a competition, that would be a big no-no.
Just shows you how accurate you've got to be, because surely with that amount of smoke surrounding the car, how do you know where the edge of the track is anymore? They have to have a sixth sense to know that what surface they're on, and just have this recall of where the white lines are, because it's predominantly done on racing circuits, I think.
And it's how close you can drift the car into those areas, like the boxed areas around the curve.
Yeah.
In what we've seen in some competition drifting, and the judges will mark the drive, the run on the synchronicity, what we're seeing there with the 99 and the 31. The 99 being, let me just find it on our sheet, that's Archie Harmer, the British driver with that BMW E36, and the 31 is Jack Gregory, another British driver, both BMW E36s. Not necessarily, we haven't been given any information as to what exactly the motors are in those cars, but not necessarily as they came out of the dealership, are they?
No, that's fair to say, as Ben was commenting on the Dodge Charger. The Nissan 350Z with a very characteristic whine for Wouter Heimer that came through a little while ago. And also a brief glimpse of Uwe Senna. Now, Senna is a drifter, but his daytime job actually writing for a well-known German automobile magazine, Joe. So that's the number 3 that I just caught a sight of.
Yeah, he's the magazine Sport Auto, which is a very popular.
Yes. Well subscribed.
Well subscribed, that's the term I was looking for.
Well popular.
Well popular,
It's well popular. Supercharged BMW E36. So that's why he can get immediate response on the throttle.
I've always thought it looks quite aggressive, the way that they behave out on drift courses. And it was interesting to hear that actually that is something they are looking for. They want to see the cars properly thrown about. It looks a bit, I would describe it, my father would describe it as rock aping, but it's actually part of how to be a good drifter. To throw it from left to right, to really have the angles. And actually, you are not a good drifter if you just coax it sideways and coax it left and right.
So I think it's all about the spectacle as well, isn't
right.
it? The people who have created this as a sport, it's also an entertainment as well. And it's all about the spectacle of seeing these cars being driven completely, what looks like completely out of control. However, that couldn't be further from the truth, could it? Completely in control there.
There's got to be so much understanding between the two drivers within a twin battle, because, you know, as the rear swings from left to right, you've got to be, I suppose, as accurate to get the nose in there as possible, but also preempting where that tail of the front car is going to go next. So again, it's a sixth sense, and just being comfortable with being, I mean, sometimes quite literally door handle to door handle. They're touching through some of these drifts.
And I don't really fancy being the second car, because in all that smoke, it must be very hard to see where to place your car.
You can't see anything, can you? Literally, if you're in the...
Maybe it's easier for them than it is for us from the outside, especially this camera angle, being blinded basically by the smoke. But they're incredibly close to each other.
That's the Falcon Drift team. They must know how each other thinks. They must act like one entity. like an octopus with several. Just they know they're like one brain across two cars.
But it's got across two very different cars as well. I mean, look at them. Now, these two are in sort of Toyota-backed Supras, and they are part of the Drift Force racing team, both from Switzerland, and both with over 1,000 horsepower in their Supras.
Wow.
In fact, isn't the front axle wider than the rear axle as well?
Probably, yes. Yeah, that would give it stability in and plus add in the extra steering angle you've got, then, you know, easier to control is what I was about to say there. I don't think there's anything easy about maintaining that kind of slide whilst being a foot or so from the car that's next to you and maintaining that angle.
I mean, we're talking steering angles of 70 degrees, as mentioned.
Yeah. If you think about that, that's just 20 degrees away from 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Which was like, you know...
It is in my world as well.
And the thing is, if on a normal steering rack, I think the angle is, 40 degrees? Something, I actually do not know. On a racing car, it's even less.
I'm comparing it to a road-legal car like a London FX4 Taxi, right? Which has phenomenal turning circle. But it's nothing like 70 degrees.
No, and if you were to drift a car at the sort of angles that we're seeing here on a conventional steering rack, that rear end would start pulling the front end around with it and start dragging it. However, because you're steering into the corner more, the front end doesn't get dragged into the melee, so you're able to maintain a steeper angle in the attitude of the car,
which is something that they need to achieve as part of the regulations, to be as angular as possible.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the rear wing is particularly necessary.
Well, I would think you would need
cool points.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good.
Yeah, right.
But you would certainly need the rear end that would be responsive to throttle, which would you need it. And we're also, there are quick release differentials to change ratios in the rear axle. The final drive ratio can be changed in, say, 10 minutes with bolt off, bolt on kind of changes in diff. So if you have a run where you are the chaser rather than being chased and vice versa, you might need a different ratio in the rear axle for your final drive, and that can be done throughout a tournament. And that's something that, you know, like what we're more familiar with road racing, constant adjustments to get performance. It's exactly the same in this form of motorsport.
It's pretty relentless, isn't it? These guys are going round and round and round without much of a break. That was Tim Wiener in the Toyota GT86 we just saw. Back to these two Falcons. We've got 4 or 5 of them, but I think that is Rick Van Gotham and Rowan Van Riel we're seeing most of. There's also, as we mentioned before, Mark Visser, Remo Neeson, and Becky Evans is part of that Falcon Drift team. And those two then are the Drift Force Racing Toyotas. And actually the president of Toyota, Mr. Toyoda, the founder of Toyota being his grandfather, here this weekend racing in the 24 hours and came and visited the team. The car's actually displayed outside the Experience Centre, which is just on the inside of the first turn as they go off towards the Nordschleife. And he came and signed the car for them. So the inside passenger door, I think it was, has now got Mr. Toyoda's signature, the president of Toyota. That's pretty cool.
That's very cool, I would say. And yeah, those sticking around for the 24 hours will be able to see Akio,
thank you,
racing Akio Toyoda together with his son Daisuke, who are occupying, of all things, a GR Yaris from the Gazoo Racing rookie racing team, Gazoo Racing rookie racing crew. Now, engine-wise, you've mentioned the Chevy V8. The other engine that actually was a Toyota that was talked about by Marcus earlier in the day. This is the Toyota 2JZ or 2JZ engine, a legendary inline 6 configuration. So we're talking a 3-litre, 24-valve, dual overhead cam engine, incredibly powerful, and not necessarily fitted as standard in a lot of these cars, but it's perfect for drifting. The other one being a Nissan RB25, which won't be a V8 either, but the Chevy V8 you'll be able to hear from many, many counties, I was going to say. Cantons, what are the departments in Germany called? Similar things. We'll be able to hear those from a long, long distance away. But it's interesting that there are different configurations that clearly work for different competition reasons. And also, a lot of these quick change parts, like you're talking about limited slip diff and gear ratios, they can be changed between battles. The battles are organised to generally favour the first, the second, the third placed entrant. So it's almost like they're seeded. So as a first-placed competitor, you'd be up against the 32nd placed competitor. So it's relatively easy for you to get through. But it is knockout. So you'll have these occasional upsets where a car that maybe shouldn't do so well knocks out the big favourite, and then how far can they get in that knockout style, almost sort of soccer type tournament, where eventually you'll get to just 2 cars left for a final twin battle.
I think sometimes when you get a show like this, because there is no competition element, it's sometimes quite difficult to understand how the competition works. But the precision driving is one of the most spectacular elements of it. If we just put a couple of cones out or a couple of tyre stacks and then got them to drift past them as close to them as possible, if you haven't seen Top Gear, then you know they do it on that too. That's where the skill really comes in. At the moment, they're just chucking their cars around, getting them sideways. Still a lot of skill involved in that, but it's when they have to drift past a point and be as close to that point as possible whilst going sideways at 70 degrees at 150 kilometers an hour. That's when it really wows for me.
Agreed. And you know, you can draw boxes on the ground which sort of simulate obstacles, but sometimes they do have to go by three-dimensional items as well. And then when you're 2 abreast involved in a twin battle, perhaps even more complicated. But the precision driving, just one element of a weekend's competition. Don't forget, 2 more opportunities to actually witness this in person at the Nürburgring as part of the Nürburgring Drift Cup. So 6th and 7th of September this year, followed by the 25th and 26th of October. So first week of September, pretty much the final week of October. We're not even halfway through their 2025 season yet.
And it's not just local Germans as well. There's a lot of Dutch. There's a decent amount of Brits as well as French. It seems to have become a bit of a European home of drifting. I know in Ireland they absolutely they have a big drift championship over there. Not so big in the UK, but then there is definitely 2 movements from Formula Drift and Drift Kings. Those are the 2 kind of European championships, one of which run by an energy drinks manufacturer. It will remain nameless and televised and promoted very well. And of course, Formula Drift, the worldwide championship, and then you've got the FIA championship as well. So plenty of different competitions around the world. But it does seem as though the Nürburgring one, the Nürburgring Drift Cup, is very well attended Europe-wide.
There's quite a few, there's quite a lot of information on YouTube as well, and we mentioned the Dodge Charger that we saw earlier. Hopefully we'll see the Dodge Charger back out. Yeah, Alexandre Claudin from France, he is the driver in that. Now he's done a Netflix documentary called Hyperdrive that I'm aware that is still available on Netflix, so check that out. It'll be a behind-the-scenes, fly-in-the-wall look at this sport in perhaps greater detail. So that's well worth a check out. It's on my list of on my watch list when I get home. I'm going to give it a look.
I mean, YouTube is full of drifters, and it really is where they are able to promote themselves best. And you know what they're doing. So many people are followed for what they are doing with cars in garages. You know, people buying wrecked cars and rebuilding them into road cars and modifying vehicles, and the modified scene thriving thanks to YouTube. And there are many a drift team that you can follow and watch exactly what they're doing and what they're tweaking, and about, you know, it's a travel blog for one, it's a garage blog for another, and it's a competition blog as a third. We saw the Dodge just go through shot, but it was hidden behind smoke, so we didn't see it for very long.
The Queen of Europe is out there somewhere, Denise Ritzman. I've already seen the 22 E30 BMW. Well sideways, might be partnering up now to go for a twin battle or a kind of simulated twin battle in this fabulously attended Falcon Drift Show display. Every year, pretty much, in recent memory anyway, it's been a Friday evening fixture. In previous versions of the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, the single lap qualifying has gone a little bit later into the afternoon and evening, so the drift cars have had to be somewhat more patient, but they were well assembled ahead of time for the 7:30 start, and the message clearly got through to all the fans here to flood towards the grandstands at the bottom of the hill. I mean, it's perfect weather conditions as well, isn't it? A nice, warm evening, Friday night, grab a beer or several.
Just a petrolhead festival, isn't it?
Sit beside the road and watch the cars
breathing the smoke from the tyres. Yeah.
It's like a Friday night on a road down the a slip from me, in honesty. You said it's not a huge thing in the UK from a competitive style.
You mean from the legal side?
Well, yeah.
Keen's roundabouts, though.
There you go.
Yeah. Now that would have been a points loss massively there, as we saw that card completely lose and go off into the gravel. He's still on the outside. I'm not sure.
What's he doing?
Why?
Well, is that in case, you know, bringing gravel back onto the the circuit and doing the gentlemanly thing of not affecting runs for the Falcon Drift team? Bearing in mind they're going to introduce a third car into this. What are they up to in the Falcon Drift team? That's not part of the script.
Ringy roses here for the Falcon Drift team. Several ways of inducing the spin of the back wheels. If you've got enough power, you can just plant the throttle. There are other ways that are much more abusive to the car, and that's a clutch drop. Whilst the engine's revving, you just blip the clutch. That lifts the revs, gets the wheels spinning as you let out the clutch again. However, the clutch, the drive shafts and all the drivetrain take a lot of abuse with that method.
Yeah, they do tend to rip through quite a few parts, don't they, through the course of a weekend, perhaps.
There's the Dodge Charger back out. It's going to do a ringy roses as well.
Is that the technical name?
I'm pretty sure that is not the technical term.
Propeller, I want to call it.
Oh, yeah, nice. That's a much cooler name than Ringy Roses.
Now then, at this point,
how do you
can't see anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's the Dodge Charger out.
Now going the wrong way.
We're out of here.
Oh, try and spin turn it, which it should be very accomplished at. Well, he didn't even need to spin turn. Just hit the lock stops at 70 degrees.
That's Alexandra Claudin, who I mentioned with the Hyperdrive on Netflix.
I think the other one was Luke Woodham in his Nissan S14A. Just going through shot there, but obviously we're focusing on this. I mean, if that ever saw an actual Dodge Charger from the roads of America, I'd be very surprised, but especially being a Frenchman driving it, brilliant.
Yeah.
I know the Swedes love those kind of cars. If you go in the middle of Sweden on a Friday night, they cruise around in their American cars.
Only in the summer, though. I doubt they're very useful in the winter.
But it's an incredible cultural thing that exists out in Sweden. They love those cars, and they love a bit of drifting as well. Not many. We have no Swedish entrants.
I see what you mean about the stands, Johnny.
Yeah.
There's not a seat. There's not a seat to get, is there?
Not a seat in the house, Joe.
Capacity stadium.
You think about the number of people who come to the 24 hours every year, how full the campsites are in so many different places, Bruch and Flansgarten, the run towards the Kleine Carousel. But the communication around here is also so good. Everyone's got smartphones these days, so they will have known that this was one of the highlights of the weekend and got down here nice and early. It's an excuse to head into the main paddock to see some of the 24-hour cars up close, and then it's just a short walk down the hill, either via the Michael Schumacher S or in the opposite direction. Just perfect viewing.
We just saw your Queen of Europe, Denise Riesman, in the orange and green BMW, and she was ringer roses with Bianca Lankes-Mack in the Mercedes. Did you notice there was that Mercedes?
I didn't see that.
W208. Not a model I've heard of, but Nice to see a different German manufacturer on the BMW is very well known for drifting. Nissan's very well known for drifting.
All Mercedes have a W model number, so my CLS is a W219. I'm just going to look and see what. Did you say 208?
208, yeah. Like a Peugeot. But yes, BMWs, Toyotas, Nissans, very well known in the drift scene. Mercedes, less so.
That really high-revving engine note from the Nissan 350Z of Wouter Heimann again. And what I don't know is whether that's the RB25 made by Nissan or the Toyota 2JZ that we've talked about already, but it's certainly not one of the V8 cars. Instantly recognisable as it plunged its way down towards the hairpin through the smoke and gets another couple of partners to go for the propeller-type move.
Those 350Zs had a pretty epic engine. As a standard
car,
350 horsepower V6, very similar to the racing engines of Renault at the time. I had a 350Z, and I had a Nismo tuned one. Wasn't for drifting. I tried going to Le Mans once. It's got a puncture.
Did you really?
Around the roundabout. Nobody knows until now.
No.
Well, I remember the 350Zs and the 370Zs as race cars were instrumental in getting drivers out of their sim rigs and into real-time racing.
Yeah, Nissan Academy, yeah.
Jan Mardenborough eventually getting to Le Mans and others too. So, but this is, we're not racing here. We are trying to get the cars as dramatically and stylishly as possible, sideways.
Freestyling, Johnny.
Freestyling. I like it.
Freestyle driving.
Freestyle drifting.
Dressage on a horse.
Kind of. However,
viewed as that.
Drift.
Never seen dressage with 3 horses, though, nose in, going around in circles.
Well, you mentioned, sports that are in comparison to this kind of the etiquette that we're seeing and the subjectivity of the judges on certain aspects of it. It's a bit like figure skating or dressage.
That's a good comparison, Joe.
Yeah.
I like that.
Did you
I'm almost shocked.
Inner edge?
Didn't take you for a figure skating fan.
I didn't say I was a fan, but I am aware of figure skating.
You've got all the Torval and Dean videos.
It's kind of, I like a bit Bolero.
And the Falcon team have arrived with a fourth car. It's like they're upping the ante every time they approach.
There are 5 of them in total.
All right.
Okay, right. Oh, right. I think that's a bit of a spoiler alert.
They're just taunting us now.
Have we seen the Sylvia? Is a Sylvia in there?
There's a BMW.
BMW,
There's a
BMW, and then that's the Skyline, isn't it?
Skyline,
So we've not seen Becky yet.
No. Okay, so she'll be joining in, I'm guessing, as the 5th car in a few moments' time. But that's the Sylvia S14 for Bex, Queen Bee, normally to be heard on the mic during our live stream of the Friday night Falcon Drift show. But far more, I was going to say far more at home, but that's actually not the truth. She could be perfectly as professional behind the mic as she is behind the wheel of a drift car. But it's actually quite nice, a bit of a treat for us as a change to see her in action in the number 9 car. So we'll look out for that in about 5 or so minutes' time.
If you can spot the numbers.
Yeah, it's becoming increasingly more difficult.
Manuel Schrimpf in the 650 brake horsepower Skyline R33 in that last twosome. There was a story about Mr. Schrimpf, was there not? I don't remember what it was.
Joe, you scribbled down most of the
anecdotes. No scribbling.
What number?
33.
33. The information we've got. No, nothing.
Jean-Eric Sieber is part of this display, though, in another. It's actually a 370Z this time, with something like 800 horsepower and the 735 Gem Speed prepared car.
Oh, hang on a second, we've got some red smoke now.
Oh, interesting.
That's clever.
Is that coming out of the exhaust?
It's becoming more and more pink as it's getting mixed with the other. Yeah, how do you do that?
Well, I think that's being emitted. Is it in the tyre?
Yeah.
That's clever, isn't it? I thought it was going to be
a pair of red tyres, maybe?
I mean, it's definitely coming off the tyres.
Yeah. I thought for a moment it might be being emitted through an exhaust duct system, but now it's embedded maybe in the rubber.
Wow.
They construct the tyre. So you can maybe put some sort of dye in it. I mean, we're guessing here, folks, but normally there's a white dye put inside. No, of course, that's the natural stuff that comes off the tyre. But that BMW's grabbed the headlines by looking like it was on fire initially. Well, it kind of is in terms of its drift ability. And I wonder whether we've got some other colours of smoke as well. That was going to be my other analogy, was like an aerobatic team, you know, and how close they could be in the skies with perfect understanding from pilot to pilot. Sometimes they emit different colours of smoke.
The first thing that comes up on Google, how would you like to announce your gender of your child? Using smoked drift tyres.
Of course! So they come in pink or blue?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Blue gender reveal tyres from €150 a tyre. Thank you very much.
Just go drive down the straight and handbrake turn. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, so it's a set of red tyres, Johnny.
That is amazing.
Right.
And I'd like to see other colours utilised as well.
I know what I'm
Orange,
getting for Christmas.
So I'm wondering whether we wait for the Falcon drift team to arrive on the scene. Here we go, right on cue. It's not as if we've got a script here, guys. 2 more of them. But I wanted really 5 in total to get Becky Evans involved as well. But it's another twin battle for a couple of these Falcon cars. BMWs of different vintage. And now the Charger's got to get involved with the Skyline.
God, it does rattle, doesn't it?
It's a great sound.
There's a lot of power on that track at the moment. There's a lot of power being laid down on that track.
Certainly is.
It's going to be very grippy tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, for that warm-up session.
Yeah.
For the 24-hour cars. Too right.
I imagine if it rained, it would be horrifically slippy.
We probably didn't need to resurface as much of the Nürburgring has been done in preparation for this race. Just let the drift guys out overnight. Just lay down a shed load of rubber. But yeah, it doesn't mix particularly well with water.
These two Toyotas incredibly tight with each other. The birthplace, the home really, the spiritual home of drifting in Japan.
Well, to remind you, if this has wet your whistle, then there is an opportunity to see the Nürburgring Drift Cup in full action, as in the full competition over the weekend of the 6th and 7th of September and the 25th and 26th of October. The Nürburgring Drift Show very present on social media as well, Instagram and X. Head to the website too for information about tickets. But I know for a fact that the NDC are very much looking forward to coming back here on a couple more occasions before the year is out. And if I wasn't already before, I'm a complete drift convert here. And I think I've got 2 gentlemen alongside me who wholeheartedly agree. These cars are going to continue to motor around, hopefully with 5 Falcon Drift cars as one before the evening is out. We'll continue our live stream as well for about another 45 minutes. But for the time being, we'll head away, maybe down to the bottom of the track, actually, because we're in the commentary box. We can't see these cars for real. I'm up for seeing a bit more in the flesh drift show. And don't forget our coverage tomorrow as the Falcon Drift crew now do descend down towards the hairpin proper. But our race coverage for tomorrow begins at 3:30 for a 4 o'clock start, the 53rd edition of the ADAC Ravenel 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. Have fun out there, folks. And you might need a new set of tyres at the end of this.